Hi, Shirley here, and today I want to make a little contribution to May because, as some of you may know, May is the self-pleasure month, and it's also the month of my birthday. I recently had a solar return that was on May 6th, and I entered a Mars perfection year, and this is what I got for my birthday. It's kind of these little burns. um, Kind of the Mars showing its face. And I had two glass, like a glass bottle and a glass kettle broke on the same day for a couple of hours difference. That was, I think, yesterday. Anyhow, May, self-pleasure May. And today I'd like to talk about kind of the astrology of sexuality. The way I see it, this is not a technical, traditional kind of mechanical interpretation, but more of an intuitive one. So it may not necessarily apply to your practice. So if you practice astrology, you're very welcome to share your views and your experiences. This is more like the way I experience the planets, and what I'm going to say here is in no way in contradiction to the darker aspects of planets. Let us all begin. I'm going to introduce you to this beautiful blend that I created. It's called Rejoice in Life. It has lavender, sage, lemon, orange, clary sage, sandalwood, and frankincense. And it smells amazing. Like I really want to kind of open the video with the blend. Oh God, I love the smell. Okay, now we're set. So self-pleasure and astrology. My view around this is that self-pleasure, and I mean the healthy form of self-pleasure, the awareness, anchoring yourself in your body, is actually a Jupiterian act, rather than, for example, a Venusian. And the reason being is that Jupiter is the joy that we create within ourselves. It is that rejoicing in life, that inspiration, that childish curiosity that we just have within, independently of external things. And when we talk about being in a good habit of Jupiter, we talk about really connecting with our joy. And I hear people talk about this in the sense of doing what you're inspired to do, practicing your passion, be it a career or a hobby or whatever, house in your chart it falls in. But I don't hear them talk about the energy, the sexuality aspect of it. I mean, Jupiter is the bringer of children, right? It's also children, and children do usually happen through some sort of sexual activity. They may happen through self-pleasure with today's technology, IVF and so on. So at least one partner has to self-pleasure themselves for that to happen. But Jupiter is also, it's the traditional ruler of Pisces, it's the ruler of Sag. And when I say it's the traditional ruler of Pisces, it's kind of like the vessel through which you channel energy. I think of the Reiki practitioner. When you send energy to someone, you don't send your energy, otherwise you get depleted. You channel energy that comes through you, heals you, goes through your body, and then is sent out of you to the world, to the patient, to whomever you are healing, you're sending healing energy to. Which is why it's not such a good idea to send bad energy, because it's probably going to work the same. Not that people are rational when they're doing that. So self-pleasure is pretty much the same energy. It's getting connected with the abundance the feeling that there is an abundant infinity of love somewhere out there, we bring it down here and we send it, and there is always enough. There is always enough with Jupiter. And that's the thing that we want to cultivate when we self-pleasure with the energy of Jupiter. Very Jupiterian essential oils would be frankincense and also myrrh, kind of like any oil that helps you to deepen the meditation. I think clary sage as well could be considered Jupiterian oil. It helps you to deepen your breath, to deepen the meditation, and to get into your body, and to also get connected with both the above and below. So yeah, smelling some of these oils can really kind of gain access to the wisdom, to channeling, to higher energies, and that energy that we want to create when we come to be anchored in our bodies. And remember, I always say, when we are not fully present in our bodies, there are many parasites, energy vampires, bacterias, fungi and whatnot that would love to take our place. Life in this physical body for many, many, many creatures is a gift that they honor and cherish deeply. Now, of course, we have good reasons to leave our body, usually due to trauma. But we want to get connected with this energy of there is enough. I am enough. Jupiter rules the lungs and the veins around the heart. The heart is like the sun, but the veins around the heart, this heart chakra thingy, is also Jupiter. And also the liver, which is already solar plexus chakra. And we know the color of Jupiter is yellow, right? Pineapples, Jupiterian food. I love pineapples. And they make you tasty. So according to Chinese medicine, the liver is where we store anger. And what is anger? Anger is when we don't set the boundary. And why won't we set boundaries in our lives? Usually because we have an experience of lack. So we feel that we are dependent on something external, something Venusian, something martial, to survive, whether emotionally or physically, financially or even spiritually. And then we don't set the boundaries, or we've had experiences where we tried to set boundaries, but that did not work out, and nobody listened. So getting connected back with the experience that there is enough, that you can breathe deeper, that you can expand your lungs and let the air out, air coming in, air coming out. There is flow, there is always enough. You don't have to think about it. You feel you can trust the air to be there for you when you need it. That's the kind of energy that we want to cultivate. And I'm using the oils because crystals and oils are a way to get access to this energy that is independent of external beings or external, of course, food, healthy food is important, but kind of independent of that which we are attached to, usually. And it helps you move the energy around and begin to heal. Here. It helps you move the energy around and begin to heal. It also helps you kind of feel lighter in the body, and more free. You move towards freedom. So when you anchor this energy in, it's easier for you to walk out, to individuate from that which has its cord attached to you. Because cords are attached mutually, usually. And when you release yourself from that, it becomes easier for things to come into your life, stay in your life, and leave your life with ease. Um, as far as your chart allows, I mean, we don't only have Jupiter in the chart, even though we are focusing on Jupiter today. And kind of have this flow where you are anchored within your own joy, and you can engage in things, engage in relationships, engage in food, engage in business transactions, engage in hobbies without being dependent on them. And so your relationship to things and people become healthier. And so when we talk about Jupiter, is Jupiter improving upon your life and healing Jupiter as something that improves your life, we definitely should be mentioning self-pleasure as well, because that's what it does. A main source of attachment is the intimate and sexual relationships that we have with other people. And anchoring in our practices of self-pleasure bring us to a point where we own our pleasure, where we own our energy, where we can find joy within, independently of others. And so our relationships become a celebration of a give-give, celebration of, mutual empowerment, mutual inspiration, mutual support of each other's growth and path and spiritual development, and childish curiosity. And they become more so and less a survival mechanism to get around in the world, which they also are. I'm not going to let that, I'm not going to squash that, because it's a part of life. We're going to meet each other in both our animalistic and survivalistic places, and we're going to also meet each other at the expansiveness of our heart. And it's up to us to be anchored in our joy, in our Jupiters, steadily enough that we can go through this without being succumbed to being predators or being prey. So that's my my Jupiter video. And I definitely see it as the self-pleasure. Of course, it's also sexual. It's also the bringer of children. It's that sexuality that is expansive, that is nourishing in a mental, spiritual way. And it's the place where you want to practice good sexuality. I mean, we think of sexuality as, of course, Pluto, Mars and Venus, Mercury, perhaps the communication, but every planet has a sexual flair to it. It's energy, it's life energy. And Jupiter would be the place where we individuate and align with Source. And have an abundant source of joy within us. That fills us and makes us radiant, it makes us shine. So I'm not going to talk about the other planets. I mean, I've got a lot to say about, Mars, and Mars is a real issue. I'll definitely be addressing Mars. We are on a Mars day today. And then Saturn, these are considered the great malefics, and I think that there's another aspect to them. I think I spoke about Saturn and being the Lord of Time and wanting us to be present in our bodies so that things will arrive on time. And to say it shortly, Mars is kind of the way we penetrate the world, and it's also tantric. So you know what, I'm going to speak about Mars a bit, because Mars is, Ernst Wilhelm talks about good habit Mars as a Mars we use to get our Jupiterian goals. So as our strategy to get more spiritually evolved in this life and do good for ourselves in the world. So this is Mars, and of course the darkest manifestations of Mars, the bad habit Mars, is the Mars that is aggressive, that is penetrating uninvited, that is initiating in the wrong places, that is sharp, that is cutting where it shouldn't be. And you know, Mars mature, I think at 28, and fix me if I'm wrong. Think about, when do people go to the army? I mean, Jupiter matures at 16, it's like the sweet 16. Mars matures at 28, and think about when people go to the army in countries where there is army service, like 18-ish, 20-ish, not anywhere near mature. And how that affects our lives, and how that affects the way we think about our yang energy, which is Mars. It's the yang phallic energy, regardless of gender, that penetrates the world. We all have it regardless of gender. We all have a Mars somewhere in our chart. And we want to be using Mars in a way that is for the Jupiterian goal. And the way to do that, I mean, how does an energetic penetration happens in Tantra, also a physical one? The yang partner kind of likes initiates, asks for permission, and it waits at the doorway. And how does it know when it is time to penetrate? It's basically being vacuumed in. That's what happens with the bodies and with the energetic bodies. And this is the dance of the yin yang, the yin inside of yang and yang inside of yin. There's a bit more, it's like another level of understanding the yin yang energies within the planets and within the world. So for Mars to know where to initiate, it kind of needs to sit in the body. And that's like the meditation that I do nowadays when I'm in a Mars perfection year, to work with my yang energy, is to kind of sit with yourself and ask, where am I being pulled to initiate? And let the answers come, because you would get a pull towards something. And then, you know, when you act on it, then you're already taking an inspired action. It's in alignment with Jupiter, and Mars supports it. So whatever obstacles and challenges you have on your way, on your path, they would begin to dissipate. Maybe not, you know, necessarily in an easy fashion. That depends on other factors. But you will begin to pave a path that you're being pulled into. And it's like a dance. For example, when I did a meditation, it was actually at work. We were doing meditation to manifest our clients in our next project. And another thing that came to me, I used lavender oil on my heart, and I was pulled in to study the more advanced course of aromatherapy. And all the reason was not supporting it, because it was like, where will I get the money? How will there be a lockdown? Will I pass the course? Is it time for me now? But I was pulled in to do it, and I acted on that. And there were delays. It was supposed to begin a month before the actual date where it began, and I had to kind of grapple with finding the resources. But every obstacle kind of dissipated, and the path was paved for me to do it, because I was, you know, initiating where I was pulled to initiate. And that's a good habit, Mars. And you can do it with I believe you can do it with any Mars. I mean, my Mars it's sitting pretty in Scorpio. It isn't the 22nd degree. It's kind of at 10 degrees from Saturn at 12 degrees Scorpio, and it's oppositioning the Sun. It does trine the Moon. It does trine, I think, the Ascendant. I'm not sure. But it is quite challenging. And the issue of boundaries, of knowing when to initiate, when to stop, when to cut, and when to continue. These are things that I have been grappling with. And yet you can work with this energy. You're not a victim of your chart. You're also not, there are things that you won't be able to turn, you know, 180 degrees. There is a lot of fatedness to astrology, and you don't only have a Jupiter in your chart, and even when you do, it can be afflicted. But you kind of want to find a point of intervention, the point of empowerment, the point of co-creation, that you do have. So that's a good habit. Mars. Should I talk about Saturn? For Saturn, well, I talked about it wanting you to be in your body and wanting you to do things with dedication. I see it as the Lord of mindfulness. Um, if you have any of your sexual houses or signs aspected by Saturn, then you may be the type that would need to practice like relaxed arousal or detaching from the outcome to reach more orgasmic states. And it's going to take time and dedication and mindfulness to do so. So for Saturn, we think of it as limitations and challenges, but limitations and challenges only come as something that puts us back into our bodies and puts us back into dedication. It's that area in life where we have more time that we need to take for ourselves to get long-lasting results. So it's not, it's not a malefic, right? You need to give yourself time with Saturn, and make sure that you're giving yourself the time, that you're taking a long time, that you're not, trying to make out with a Mars in Aries. Not gonna work for you, right? Unless you're being really creative about how you're going to handle these differences. So that's Saturn. Venus is kind of a conditional love. It's making sure that you're not only giving or not only taking. It is something that you can only do when you're anchored in your Jupiter, because it's the connection we have with other people. And giving and receiving in an equal matter is really crucial to having successful Venusian stuff, be it your possessions or your relationships. So we think of Venus as this kind of a magnet that invites, that pulls in, right? It pulls in. And so I guess a good habit Venus will attract and invite things while staying anchored within that inner joy that is independent of, whose self-value is independent of those things which we attract. Otherwise we get to the Pluto area. And the Pluto area, if Saturn wants us to stay in our bodies and give ourselves time, also when we're bored or when we are uncomfy, Pluto wants us to stay in our body no matter what. It wants us to not abandon ourselves through difficult experiences. And to get into the Pluto area, you really need to be anchored in your Jupiter. You need to take a torch of light and step slowly into the darkness. Now, the chart and your transits in life are not going to always allow for that. And this is how you get traumatic experience or re-victimization, because you're being pulled in a transit where you don't carry enough light, and then you're just being thrown into the darkness, and then you kind of have to find your way to love yourself out of it. And my previous video began to touch on how to do that. And it was cut in the middle, and I guess if I get enough requests, I will continue it. But I kind of wanted to give that light illumination of how we use energies to be exposed to that self-love vibe. So Pluto, Jewel from Truth in Aspect Astrology defines Pluto as the place where we are vampiric, where we suck the energy out of the other. And that is brilliant, because if you think of Pluto as our traumas and the darkness that we go through for the evolution of the soul, We're getting all the way in to get all the way out, and we're completely different when we come out of Pluto transits. Then you think about the places in ourselves that are not Jupiterian. And we need to take that there is enough energy to kind of transmute Pluto. And this is why I'm really surprised we're not having more conversations about Jupiter in evolutionary astrology, because that is what facilitates the progress of the soul. You know, if Rahu is where it's the hunger that kind of makes us try again and again and again, Jupiter is the light that brings us, you know, from the Ketu-Pluto darkness into the path where Rahu wants to develop in. So maybe there is this discourse, but I've just not seen it, and feel free to educate me there. But I do think we need to talk about Jupiter more in evolutionary astrology. What did I forget? Well, Mercury, communication, right? Easy communication. Is there really more to say? Communication, maybe the mental body, and then Uranus is kind of the excitement. Uranus to inner planets, you know, Uranus to Venus is this exciting relationship. Then you have to kind of keep the flame alive by creating more excitement, by creating air, space, you know, take space from each other, by allowing freedom and liberation in. So it may not be fit for everyone. It's considered kind of not so feelish, not so emotional, but exciting. I guess it can be emotional if you have other aspects in the chart or in the synastry or the composite. So I wouldn't outrule, you know, having emotional involvement in a Uranian relationship. You don't get that high of excitement just by being mental. And Neptune is the place where we surrender. It's also the place where there can be great confusion, because Neptune is the oneness. You know, if Jupiter is the vessel through which we channel certain energy, Neptune is the void, is where we dissipate, where our egos dissipate. And it is not an experience of the physical body. So to try to do Neptunian sexuality, well, good luck with that. I mean, you have to have good aspects to more physical planes like Venus, or trying to Mars. But in hard aspects to those planets, especially in hard aspects to Mars, it can create this confusion about, you know, there is no me and you, and then boundaries get broken. So for Pluto, boundaries get broken because there is high attachment. For Neptune, boundaries get broken because there is a dissolution of the boundaries. And that's what we kind of have to be aware of, to be careful from. So I think I kind of said, you know, back to Jupiter. So that was my kind of joyous contribution to Self-Pleasure May. I think it is a really important practice. We talk about meditation is important, we talk about mindfulness is important, we talk about movement is important, medically and spiritually and whatnot. Self-pleasure should be on par with meditation and motion. It is right there. It's moving the Kundalini energy, it's pleasure, it's that inner shine, that inner youth, right? And Jupiter is also youth. That's just there. And I haven't talked about the sun and the moon. Well, the sun is the ego, it shines. It's kind of like the person who dedicates and dedicates and dedicates to the other, but they kind of need to be careful to not forget themselves in it, because they are striving for appreciation and admiration. You know, it rules Leo. And what's Leo, right? Leo is the aspect in all of us where we don't, the minute somebody releases their expectations of us, we just shine and shower them with attention and love and beauty, and sometimes, you know, resources, to the point that we forget ourselves, and innerly we need to have to feed on their energy, in the sense that we need the appreciation, and we sometimes can do things to feel good about ourselves. You know, it's like the lover that is so dedicated and loving and amazing, and they just want to be appreciated for the great lover that they are, that they sometimes forget whether, you know, about the other person. It can kind of get freaky in that way. But I guess when you have two that are like this, that can really work out well. But it, you know, if you get the moon, it can be problematic, because the moon is receptive and it's nourishing, and it's not so much about the ego. It's reception and nourishment. So think about a moon Jupiter, right? The Jupiter is the expansive person, and the moon is nourishing Jupiter, and Jupiter is, you know, inspiring and nourishing the moon. So people talk about Mars and Venus as our sex drives and raw sexuality, but talk about a Jupiter moon sexuality. That's like that's the real thing. And of course, it's a combination that can bring children, so you got to be careful with that in your chart if you are willing to do things in time. And if you are supported by Saturn, that could very well be the perfect match. So yeah, that goes for the moon. This has kind of been a chaotic yin video. Yeah, and we should be talking about these energies as well, because the malefics are not necessarily malefic. Like, we don't want to think about Mars as the great malefic when we talk about sexuality. Yang, the phallus is not a great malefic, right? And we definitely don't want to think about the Lord of Time and making sure things happen in time and taking our time as something malefic. And that does not outrule what Saturn can denote or what Mars can do when it's bad habit. But Jupiter can do that too. Jupiter is just expansion. It can get you, you know, out of your boundaries. You got to do it correctly. Anyway, so have a beautiful self-pleasure May month. That was my little astrological and essential oil contribution. And I'll see you in my next video. Like, comment if you like it, don't comment if you don't. And if you have any requests for videos, you can contact me here on Instagram or on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter recently. So yeah, I have reopened a Twitter account that may appear there, and yes, share it with people who would appreciate that, and, you know, do it for the algorithm so more people can find out about my videos, and help build some sort of community together. Have an amazing day. I'll see you in my next video.